Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so happy that you're joining us. We wanted to take this opportunity to talk about the Magdalene Moonrise service that we're doing on Easter. This has been an annual event for over 10 years that a group of us have done. But what's always been really interesting is been what has been the astrology for the day when we do the ceremony. So I'm here with Karen Puma, who is an astrologer who has graciously and generously done a reading for the exact time of the ritual that we're doing. And what came forth was so amazing in talking about what this particular Easter is all about. So I wanted you, Karen, to share some of the highlights of it. And then we're also joined with Luminessa and Jara, who has a story of one of the goddesses that emerged in the chart reading that is playing an instrumental and pivotal role for modern women as we move forward in this new time, in this new era. So, Karen, what did you find out in the reading? What's going on at 7 p.m. on April 4th for the Magdalene Moonrise service?
It was amazing. It's an amazing chart. It's a Libra rising, and it has a stellium, which is a grouping of planets in the sign of Aries. And Aries is an individual. It's like express yourself. I've got to be me. I've got to do what I need to do. And what's so powerful is that there's the sun, which is right on the descendant, and the seventh house represents partnerships coming together. So women, this is a powerful message for women, because we're offering Easter in the light of the feminine, the goddess. There's a grouping. So we have the sun, which represents consciousness, right at the descendant. So it's the sun is setting, and right near that is Ceres. Ceres is the goddess of agriculture, and she's in Aries, and she was just uplifted to a dwarf planet, and she's the higher octave of the moon, which is nourishment. So Ceres in Aries says, women, nurture yourself, love yourself, believe in yourself.
Wow.
And it's an exact conjunction. And then right near that, 2 degrees away, is Venus in Aries. Venus in Aries is love, and love is the key, and self-love. All love starts with self-love. And it's series in the it's so the different aspects of the feminine. The Venus is the lover, the love goddess, and she also is creative energy, and she's the only alchemical goddess, which is sort of like a limelight. When she looks at you, she has this energy about her. So this is an Aries. Give that energy to yourself, women. It's like we're seeing new roles. And then we have Black Moon Lilith, which Luminescence is going to talk about, and this is deep mysteries. And
So
then,
there are four types of Liliths, right? And
yeah,
this is the Black Moon. So what can you say about the Black Moon Lilith versus, or do you know the four types, or?
I'm studying it, but I really, it's to me, she represents the independent nature that's asking for equality, and she has to deal with the mysteries of life. She's not really, the Black Moon Lilith is not a planet per se. It's an area in the heavens. And so she moves along, but she's very potent here. And I will leave that to luminescence to talk about that quality. But to me, just to say, Black Moon Lilith in Aries is, we women need to demand and their own equanimity within themselves, and ask for equality with others.
Like we want respect, right? Exactly. So Luminessa, I know you've had some really power. Oh, you had one other thing you wanted to say?
Well, just
Go ahead.
this combination, and then we'll branch out. Um, Also, with Black Moon Lilith and Venus and Ceres is Eris, and I have been studying Eris, and Eris is is the goddess of discord, but it depends on your consciousness. This planet is dwarf planet. It's very, outer banks of the solar system, and she's the revealer of discord. She says what needs to be changed. So she's the goddess warrior. She's an activist, and she's really coming into her own and speaking her truth and saying this isn't right, let's change it. Now we have this massive square that's been going on in the with Eris and Pluto. We've had it 3 times this year. That was when we first got in the lockdown, the George Floyd Black Lives Matter movement, and then we just had it now with this in late December, which is this insurrection. So anyways, these are the 4 goddesses that are bringing consciousness, and these are squaring the moon and Pluto in Capricorn. And the moon and Pluto in Capricorn say to me that we need to change traditional roles. So Pluto is transformation, death, rebirth, deep metamorphosis, like the caterpillar turning into the butterfly. And so this energy with moon and Capricorn is the traditions, the old roles, the status quo, the top-down power is being squared by these individualistic new energies of the goddess, and they're being activated by Mars. Mars is in Gemini, giving energy to these new roles that we need to take. So that is the essence of this chart. And Mars is conjunct the North Node. So this energy to communication is our path right now.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
But that's a good start.
So since Lilith is playing a pretty significant role here, Luminessa, why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with Lilith and who she is and how she's transforming things here. So
I first would like to share, before I even say anything about my story, that Lilith has a really important message for women, because we are taking a predominant role in the world today.
I think a lot of women don't even know who Lilith is.
So I'm going to say, just
Yeah.
give me a moment. I'm getting there. I'm just prefacing all of this.
Okay.
So Lilith, we call this the age of Lilith, the age of the return of Lilith. That's the name that I like to call this, because she's not just a demoness. And there's an aspect which has been well known. People will see, you'll see fantasy images of her on Google. If you put in Lilith goddess, you'll see all these weird, strange images, you know, with teeth and fang and wings and the whole thing. She looks very dark. Now, that's an aspect, because that's an aspect of the feminine. There is an aspect of that dark goddess, but the Hebrews demonized her. The patriarchy took this powerful image of Lilith, who is the first woman. Now, we know the story of Lilith and Eve. Lilith was
No, we don't. What is this?
I'm going to say it. Lilith, and before, I'm just going to give this as a brief intro. Okay. Lilith is and was the first woman. Now imagine thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. We lived in the Garden of Eden on Earth. We were in a Garden of Eden. There's actually proof that there's a Garden of Eden and that there was a tree of life, a real one. And imagine that Lilith is the archetype of woman in and the feminine in its purity, in its bounty, in its nurture, in its passion, in its primal instinct. And she's the first woman. She's the mother of mankind, of humankind. Now she is here. And then patriarchy came in later. The story got distorted and Adam came in, because out of woman's body was born humanity. So man came out of woman's womb, woman came out of woman's womb. So Adam was born, but in the story, Lilith, did not want to copulate with Adam on the supine. She said, no, I want to be on top too. This is the patriarchal versions of the story, okay? So Adam went, no, go ask God. And God, of course, at this point is a male God. It's now Yahweh, the male God of the Hebrews, when the story got transitioned from the goddess lore. And so Lilith goes and asks God and says, you know, God, I don't want to be subservient to man. I'm an individual. I'm a sovereign woman. I want to be able to lay on top if I want to have sex on top. And God says, no, you must be subservient to man, which again is the patriarchal version of giving a message. Now understand, all mythology and all stories that we hear are based on the culture in which they are written. So back then, this was a way in which the culture got propagandized into believing that now man is the ruler, man is God, and woman is subservient. So Lilith said no, and she said, well, you know what? I'm going to go leave. I'll leave Eden if that's the case. And so she flew off and became a demon and copulated with all the demons. And this is the story. And then the Hebrews named her Lilith. And Lilith means in Hebrew, Lilith, which means dark. It means a night creature. And then the myth got even more propagated that because she was a demoness, she was to be feared. Because what? Lilith represents woman in her wholeness. She is in her sexual power. And you know that old story that women have heard that, you know, the jaws of the vagina, the jaws of the yoni will eat up a man. This is the myth. These are the myths that get started from these kinds of stories that are changed. So what ends up happening is that this whole context of Lilith is the demoness goddess to be feared, the dark night of the soul kind of energy that she's going to eat you up. She kills young infants and she creates wet dreams for men. She seduces them and then she kills them. This was the whole thing to bring in a fear of woman's power, woman's wholeness, and her primal instinctual nature. So having said that, I will say that what her true mission is in this age of the return of Lilith is that she's not just a rebel goddess, but she truly is an archetype of wholeness and sovereignty of the original blueprint of the divine feminine before it was corrupted by the dominator cultures and patriarchy.
Wow.
Very potent energy. Now, the story I will just briefly go because I find that it helps you to understand this lineage that I bring forward and that this message is coming through me as one of her teachers, one of her emissaries. For me, this information was all new and not very many people know of this information. I was given a lineage way back 40 some odd years ago. I was given a lineage. It was a very mystical experience. I had visions in a candlelight. I saw myself dancing as a flame. I was dancing in front of a flame and I knew I was in a temple. And then I heard a voice that said to me, this is you. I am you. I am Anjara, priestess of the flame. And I am dancing in the temples of Isis. And I went, wow, pretty awesome. Now I have had mystical experiences and I'm a channeler, but this was all new. So I kind of sat with that, you know, went about my business. A day or two passed and I was still ruminating on this experience. And then I happened to have, just by serendipity, an appointment to see another woman to do a channeling session with. And she was going to channel for me a teacher of Yogananda called Sri Yukteswar. And I was going to sit and have this beautiful channeling with Sri Yukteswar. And I walk in and I sit down and I've been waiting weeks to have this channeling session. And believe me, this is exactly what happened. I sat in front of this woman. She closes her eyes and she opens them and she says, do you know some Egyptian priestesses, Anjara, priestess of the flame? And I went, yes. And she said, well, there are 5 Egyptian priestesses circling around here and they want me to talk to you. And I said, okay. Now I just had this experience like 3 days ago where she came to me in my bathtub And here we are again. So she says to me, literally, you are here to bring a lineage to modern woman. Do you want to do that? And I had no idea what this was, not a clue. And I said without hesitation, yes. And immediately I went into ecstatic bliss of, you know, like I cried. I was so joyful. And that sustained for about a day or two. And then I began to wonder, what the heck did I say yes to? What was this lineage? And I will fast forward because I did not know what this lineage was. I tried to figure it out. I did not know. And eventually pieces dropped in. Priestess of the Flame. Now, I didn't even know what that meant. And Jara, that was a name I took on, Priestess of the Flame. Fast forward to maybe 4 years ago. I happened to be browsing through some email and I see an advertisement and it clicks on and I go to Amazon.com and there's a book. I click on the book and it says Lilith, Keepers of the Flame. Now, I had a rush. I cried. I felt like somebody opened a door for me, literally. I felt, oh my God, I have to get this book. I looked at the info, you know, it was like this very big book. It was like $140. And I went, well, I can get the Kindle version. So I got the Kindle version. I downloaded it right away and I started to read it. And the first chapter, it was my lineage. It was a lineage that was mine. And it was all about Lilith and this new archetype of her. And it was all based on the Vedic astrology and what they called the astrology of the ages. And it was all written by these two women who had studied with Yogananda's teacher. Yogananda's, one of his disciples who wrote the book, who was an astrologer, who taught Vedic astrology and astrology by the ages of the different Kali Yugas and the different ages. And his whole book was all about Lilith, the patriarchy, woman's role, the true role of humanity, and the original blueprint and what really happened. So that's how I came to know Lilith, because right after that, everything fell into place for me. Everything about my lineage, everything I had been teaching about sacred sexuality, women as sexual healers, the understanding the different embodiments of our wholeness, how to integrate all of that. And these were things that I had already been teaching. But now I felt there was some sort of a context, because now I had a literal lineage, a 6,000-year-old lineage. So Lilith comes from the temples of Inanna. She was the queen of heaven, Inanna's handmaiden. And this is somewhere back, I would say, just so you know, this is like 5,000 BC. And she represents woman as whole, sacred, and connected to her primal nature, her core instinctual self, her core instincts. And she is woman as complete, sovereign, and free. She is this representative that woman's body is sacred and our sexuality is pure and sacred. It is the sanctity, it is a gift that our sexual energy, what she says, it's the original tantrika. The original sexual healer is the tradition that she brings forward. So she represents woman's sexual power as sacred, for it has the capacity to catalyze physical, mental, emotional regeneration and bonding, which in turn fortifies communal unity. So sex and sexuality, and of course, through a woman's body, it is a sanctity, it is a sacred right, brings unity, brings harmony, brings peace into the community at large. And the original sexual healers came from the temples of Inanna. They were called the daughters of Inanna, and they worshiped Lilith. They worked with Lilith, and they would, this in tribal times, you know, so they were the first original sexual healers that in their community, when there was disharmony and discord, they would make love with the men who were creating the discord From sacred as a goddess, they would, transcend their personal self and become the vehicle of unification as Lilith, and bring unity and harmony back into the situation through sexuality, through sacred sex, all through the divine feminine, because part of woman's role, which is here today, and women have forgotten this because of the patriarchy, is to reconnect with themselves as a sexual initiatress, which is a sacred role for all women, not just a few. It is our divine right to be the teachers. And this is a lineage of the divine feminine. This is the purity of one of the original messages that come through the feminine before it was corrupted, that our sex is so sacred, that it is powerful, it is regenerative, it creates life. Partly what, so in this context, I would also say, she's the first, and she's the original ancestress of humankind. Now that to me is amazing. 14,000 to 7,500 BCE.
Wow.
That's how long. She represents the role women once held as the guardians of humankind's original nature, our original superhuman, superconscious, whole human beings before we were shifted and later, I would like to say, sometimes genetically altered and dumbed down slightly.
Certainly superficialized and objectified, and a number of other things, because these concepts you're speaking of have to do with a sovereign being who's worshipped, and her gifts, that what she brings.
Right, and the point being is that it's time for all women to own this.
Yeah.
Because you see, if we don't get this ourselves, no one's going to respect us if we don't respect us. If we don't own our sexual power as sacred, if we don't own the sanctity of our bodies, if we don't say, I am a strong, sovereign, powerful woman, I know this, I feel this, I own everything about me as being holy. I am the holy vessel of the mother of creation.
Yeah.
This is who I am. If we don't really get this, then nobody else will, because we get it first. Then through women, everything changes. Everything changes through this. This is how life was created. This is how we shift. Everything changes. So she represents the role women once held as the guardians of humankind's original nature, which was passed down from one generation to another with the intent to guide, protect, and preserve humankind's original way of life aligned with natural laws, restoring natural law back, restoring who we really are before the fall.
Yeah.
The fall of humanity.
Right.
And by the way, that's another myth that actually was, that story was actually created by Christian male patriarchs. That whole story was rewritten to fit exactly their agenda to what they were seen to do.
Yeah. Go ahead, Karen.
Because Lilith is connected to Venus, which is the womanly wonders, and that's all that sexual energy also. And she's connected to Eros, which is the feminine warrior, the activist. And she's also connected to the nourishment. And there's another goddess in this that's in this play. It squares the moon, as I said, but it also trines Juno, and Juno is the partner maker. It's like, what are you committed to? That's what Juno represents. So this is an opportunity for women to own their own sovereignty, sexuality. They're speaking up and saying what's true to them. Eris is the truth teller, and not just a complainer, She's the truth teller. She says this needs to be changed and life goes on. So Lilith is, you know, mixing in this Aries energy is express yourself individually. Which one of these do you want to be today? Which one are you living because they're all in you? Which one are you saying? And Lilith to me she was the patron of the women's libers in the 70s because she asked for equality and to be heard and to be equal. So that's a, you know, a sense, but this is very, very powerful. You
I
know, the
know there
sacred.
was one thing also that you talked about, which I would love you to explaining more, because what we're doing is we're stepping into a ritual as a part of the Magdalene Moonrise service, and in that ritual is designed the the energies uplift us, and we're supported by these energies that we're speaking of. And so one of the things that came out of the reading was that there's a calling for women to gather. There's a calling for women to come, and not only just to gather, but to gather with what is the purpose of our community. You know,
And
we see a pretty insane world out there. And
how
we're
can I support?
51% of the population. Hold on a second. We're 51% of the population. So we're 51% of the population, and we have no voice. You know, we have no presence in that population to speak what we want to see. We must gather. We must come. We must vision. We must decide what is the purpose of our community. Do we want a world living in love or not? And if we do, then we need to come together and join in that way. So, can you talk a little bit about what the chart says about that?
First of all, the seventh house is joining together and supporting each other in our own individuality. There's a saying that men will support each other professionally, women support each other emotionally. And but we need to support each other. How can I support? How can I gather? How can I co-create with you? And what role do I want to play? Now Jupiter here is also opportunistic aspect. Jupiter says, I want to be more than the self that I am. It's in Aquarius and it sextiles these planets, which is opportunistic. And it's, you know, opportunity to be an activist, to be the deep, mysterious sexual being that is demanding equality within the self and with others, the love nature and the part of us that is expressing, you know, how can we love more? How can we love better? What are the obstacles to love? These are the things we should look at. We have opportunities, and there's energy in this day, and there's conflicting of the past that is saying we have to, you know, remember where we're going, because we can reinvent ourselves. That's what this is calling for. Come together and reinvent yourself. Which part of the archetypal greatness do you want to bring into your life? That's what this is. It's so potent. The goddesses are talking. They're in community. They're supporting each other. They're being stimulated by the male. The consciousness is rising. That's what this is rebirth time. And this is a time for women to, this chart, it says calling them together to be your own individuality, support others, and to reinvent a new way to be. Which of these higher consciousness archetypes, which are universal patterns that live and dance within us, which ones do you want to become more alive in you? Because the opportunities are here.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So,
I wanted to just say a few things about this coming together,
sure.
the unity, which what the key is, as Lilith speaks to the modern woman, is first of all, she represents egalitarian or soft power. So We live in a world that has been power over, dominator culture. The feminine power is always soft power, power from within. She represents the power from within each woman, each person, and connecting with that power that once guided all of humankind. Remember, we once lived with this soft power. We once lived in unity with support, as Karen just said. We lived as cooperation in community, supporting each other, loving each other, giving, co-creating with each other, and to stay true to our original nature, to be rooted in spirit despite conditions of the world. It isn't about what's going on outside. It's about what's going here and how we feel rooted into our own power. She holds the key. This is really important, and I love this quote. She holds the key to the recovery of every woman's goddess nature. This is Lilith. She holds the key to every woman's goddess nature, embodying the archetype of the original, once highly esteemed and empowered, naturally spiritual woman. I love that quote, naturally spiritual, highly esteemed, very empowered woman. She reclaims, she returns today so that all women could know their true power, uniting together in restoring the feminine back to its original state of wholeness and purity, bringing forth a new frequency of the feminine for this new age. It's a new age. It's a new time. It's a new frequency that is untainted by anything from the corruption of the patriarchy. It's our own pure, divine feminine energy that we as women are restoring ourselves.
Yeah.
It doesn't get restored from above. We restore it. We, all of us, come together to restore this feminine energy. It is through Lilith that every woman can begin to unite.
Thank you. And Karen, I think you had mentioned in the beginning of the reading that this was a Libra moon, right?
No, Capricorn moon, Libra rising.
Libra rising, so Libra is the balance, right?
Yes, this is all about balance and equality and seeking, but the power is the seventh house is Libra too, which is joining with partnerships,
Right,
co-creating. It's
right,
we don't have to do it alone. Do it
right.
alone. Support your sisters in any way that you can.
So in the domination and control model versus the soft power that Luminessa is talking about, you know, there's this transformation that's happening. And Karen has a wonderful book about the transformation. You want to tell them what your book is? That
I wrote a book 30 years ago. It was published in 1990, 31. And it took me 7 years, and it's called Awakening Female Power. And I redid this book and to upgrade it and added Lilith. And it is the woman's journey, and it was highly I think it was before its time, and it was highly praised by best-selling authors.
and
And
yeah, go ahead.
I'm offering this as a gift.
Yeah, so if you
Because
buy
I
your
want to.
ticket, so if you buy your ticket, you will get the download for the Magdalene Moonrise Easter service. You'll get the download of Karen's book, which is really supporting this journey of the warrior goddess and the transformation that women have to go through. And so by diving into the energies of Lilith, which is, as Luminessa you talked about, she's bringing forth this wholeness, right?
She brings forth the feminine that we reclaim as our the purity of the feminine itself. So
Right.
if we're pure, we're whole.
Right.
Not, in other words, the fragmented parts of the feminine, the dismembered parts of the feminine that has been seen in this world, we reclaim these parts. We restore these parts. We say, I restore the feminine to its pure state of being because I restore myself as a woman to my pure state of being.
Yeah. I claim my wholeness.
My
I claim,
wholeness is, yes, your wholeness is innate within restoring your whole feminine self.
right.
So there is no distortion in the field anymore. There's
And
no distortion.
and women have so often been told that you are half until you find your other half, and then you're whole when you
Well,
find. But now it's transforming that paradigm so that no, you are whole, and you will come together in partnership with the man, in partnership, or with a partner of whoever is your um, gender of choice. Partnership. It's the co-creating partnership where people are balanced and people are in respect and people are living in a world in love. And this is what we're learning to do, and this is what we're evolving to. And so it's interesting that this moon for April 4th is first quarter split 50-50, half light, half dark. So it shows the yin yang balance. And so I think that's a very important and interesting metaphor that we have this split moon, this Easter, to talk about this balance that's so needed, that women need to be seen as equal, and equality is love. That's what love is. There is no less than in love. When you're living in the consciousness of love, nothing's less than. Everything is equal.
one
So
of one of the
This is
things I wanted to say, Christy, before was um, one of the things that we get the opportunity to do at this time is not so much about healing the world that exists, but it's about creating the new world.
right.
The new, we can't, the old world is dissolving and falling apart, and it's meant to do that. The new world, the new world, the new age, whatever you want to name that it is
New Earth.
the new earth is emerging through each and one of us. And as a feminine being, men have feminine, women have feminine, but woman is special because of our bodies, because we give birth or have the capabilities of that. We are built with certain biological and physiological similarities that unite us. I've always felt that one of the most beautiful things women can share, and I think in tribal times, we all know that women shared menses and cycles and things because they lived accordance with nature and the moon. Well, in our time, we've lost a lot of this. And even though there was a resurgence of the red tent movement and other things to bring women together, at large, by and large, we still do not honor these rights. So our biology unites us. Our biology gives us connection. I look at you as another woman and I say, you're like me.
Right.
You have a vagina and a yoni. I have that. I have these things. You have that. This to me makes us even more unified. And I think it's a principle we can remember at this time, that we're not separate by our bodies. We are brought together by our bodies. And so we shift this old distortion in the field, how it's always about women have to look a certain way, or we have to act a certain way, we have to have a certain body type. This is a distortion from the truth of our true feminine nature.
Right. Well, I just want to thank you so much for coming on, and we want to wrap it up at this
Yeah.
point, but
one thing more
go
because
sure.
it's important. This half moon you're talking about is in astrology. It's a 10th house square, and that is crises in consciousness. So this is a critical time. We are in the death throes. The moon is with Pluto, and the old roles. This is important to know. We have to break the old roles. That's why it's important to do your inner work, have a spiritual practice, heal the wounding, and then embody and reinvent yourself and come together with others. That's basically what this is.
And answer the call, because It's in the joining, in the sacred and the divine, which is very devoid in our culture and our society, the freedom to claim ourselves as divine, that we can grow into a world living in love. And so this is why we welcome you, and we want so much for you to be a part of this. Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
If you believe that the divine light shines within, then you are a goddess. You have to believe that the light is within you. That's the first.
Right.
And that's what they're saying. Embody the goddess. I say the goddess warrior.
Yes, and if you buy your ticket online at the magdalengospel.info, you will get a copy of Karen's book. So thank you so much, Karen, for being so generous. I appreciate that. And Luminessa, thank you so much for joining us. Luminessa is doing a series, which is on her Facebook page, of the Ascension Priestesses.
We do. We have yeah, thank you for bringing us. The Priestesses of Ascension is a group of wonderful women who are priestesses who teach many different things, and we work with Ascension principles, and we do a series of videos that are on how we can embody the divine feminine at this time, and how we can use this to support the change and give us sustenance and nurturance and inspiration, and how the divine feminine can really help us right now going through these transitional times. And
Yeah.
Christy is part of that.
And where is that Facebook group
There
page?
is a Facebook page. It is called the Priestesses of Ascension.
Right.
At the Priestesses of Ascension, I think. I think that's
Yeah.
what it is. And do you want me to say anything about myself at all, or?
Sure, it'd be fun.
I would just say, if you're interested in knowing anything about what I offer, and I'll be developing new work, I have a new ebook coming out called Lilith Revealed.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
it's really going to be all about these new teachings of Lilith, and it's in the works, and also be teaching a course that'll be, an introductory level course all about Lilith and how to activate her, embody her, and live with her. And my website right now is thenewfemininemystique.com.
And Karen, they can get readings from you as well, right?
I'm an astrologer. I have been since 1979. I've created a tarot deck, and I'm the author of a series of books called A Toolkit for Awakening. And I have 8 done out of 12 that are written. So, and I'm coming out in my publishing process, and I have the steps. These books are based on the Goddess Warrior on the Hero's Journey, which is a step-by-step process to awakening.
Wonderful.
And they're full of pictures, so it's an easy way to learn.
So you've heard the call, and we are gathering on April 4th for the Magdalene Easter Moonrise service, which we always do, which will be filled with song and ritual, anointings, and dance. We're going to have dance on Zoom, and all kinds of wonderful things. And Kathleen McGowan, one of the top leading international scholars on the Magdalene, will be sharing some of her incredible research that she's done on the Magdalene as a teacher of the way of love. So we're very excited to have her joining us and being a part of it. So thank you all so much. And we'll see you on Sunday, April 4th. Go to gospelofmarymagdalene.info, and thank you, Karen, and thank you, Luminessa.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I'm going to just stop it here. Record.